Which seat is he going to sit in?
Oh, I'm just going to
What about him? Did you drop some? And BadGeepsterRings.com.
I got it.
And which CDs you want to have him sit in?
Dan will get out here. I think we'll probably put Dan on the end. We'll put Stan here.
Okay.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming out to Dallas Comic-Con, my favorite show in the country, in the world. Let's hear it for Dallas Comic-Con. My name is Winston Chimian, and I host podcasts for a living. I have a comics podcast called Giant Size, but I'm not the guy that you're here to see. You are here to see a truly amazing teaming of comics creators. I'd like to start by bringing out the current king of the Spider-Verse, whose upcoming big crossover event, Spider-Verse, happens this fall. The one and only, the spectacular Spider Dan Slott. And if you guys don't make this the last year we've heard all convention, I don't know what we're going to do. The one and only, Stan, the man, Lee. Dan, do I need to check your pulse? Are you okay?
No, I'm good.
I did a panel yesterday, so I'm just going to sit here and be a bystander.
Oh.
I want to hear what Dan Slott has to say.
Oh, God.
This is the first,
No pressure.
This is the first time Dan and Stan have been on a panel together. I have that right?
Yeah, just by luck, I have to be on with one of the top Spider-Man writers who knows everything that's going on, and I don't know anything about what's been happening. And so if you have any questions, ask him.
I worked with Stan ages ago on one of the video games, and where you were narrating, and it was really fun because whenever I turn in a script, we get a note that said more alliteration. So
Well, I happen to like alliteration. Hey, stand me up against the wall and shoot me.
No.
It's an amazing, astounding, absolutely animating thing to do.
Yes. No. It's
Very clever, but leave the clever stuff to us.
I'm going to leave it to you.
You're just being collective.
That's all that I am. With great power comes great responsibility, and especially moderating a panel like this.
Call my lawyer. Did you hear what he said?
I wanted to keep that in mind. And I wanted to start off asking, Dan, I guess you've read some of Stan's work.
only all of it.
Let's say maybe there's a kid in the audience. Maybe there's somebody in the audience that isn't yet into comics. Maybe they're into the cartoons. Maybe they're into the movies. What's your go-to? A kid comes up to you at a convention and says, how do I start with Spider-Man?
Oh, Amazing Fantasy 15. You start with the best.
What are some of Stan's other bits of work, characters other than Spider-Man that you really love?
Oh, for me, after Spidey, it's got to be The Thing, Dr. Doom, and Silver Surfer. Always my favorite.
I have a confession to make. I don't hear as well as I used to. I can hear the sound, but I can't make out the words well. And when you talk into that mic, it doesn't sound like this to me. So I don't know what you said. I don't know what you answered. So if you say anything to me, just put the mic away and I'll understand you.
Oh, he was asking what my favorite books are that you've done. And I said Amazing Fantasy 15, and what other characters, and I said The Thing, Silver Surfer, and Dr. Doom.
Damn, you have good taste.
Yes!
See, I can understand when you don't use the damn mic, but then they can't hear, so we have a big problem.
Can you guys hear me when I talk without the mic?
Okay.
All right.
Theater!
So and I've got a question about that. I've got a question for Stan before we get to that, though. Last time I saw you at this show, We talked about Errol Flynn. We talked about these great movies. And I love talking to comics creators about the things that inspire them, the things that really just last and work all these years later. What were some of the movies that you saw when you were a kid that made you want to be a creative person?
King Kong, Dracula, Frankenstein. I got to tell you about Frankenstein. You remember the old Frankenstein movie with Boris Karloff and so forth?
Yeah.
I always thought that the monster was the hero. He never wanted to hurt anybody, but those idiots with torches kept chasing him up and down the hill, you remember? And that's why I did the Hulk. I wanted to get a monster who really wasn't bad, except now they have the Hulk pretty bad in some stories, but that's okay. Anyway, that's what we call a side note, you see, at a battle. Now we can get back to the main stuff.
Well, we mentioned theater a moment ago, and I want to ask both of you about your acting. Stan, you've done all of these wonderful cameos in these Marvel movies. Is there one that sticks out? Is there one that you're particularly fond of? It's all great work.
Well, I'm mostly fond, I think, of the one in the latest Captain America movie, where I said I'm fired. Because that showed my acting chops. That showed that I'm more than just a cameo guy. And Dan, have you done any cameos?
Dan, you're a theater actor.
Yes, I have lots of really good makeup. You can spot it. I am the mailbox in one of your. You can never. I'm always that well done. You can never tell me.
Your background is a theater actor.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you're writing comic books now. You're not in the West End doing Shakespeare.
No,
I'll show you why he's a modest guy. He had a chance to mention his theater acting ability, and he only said a mailbox and let it go. If it was me, I'd have made you listen to everything I ever did in the theater. Go ahead, you tell him, Dan.
No, I used to do Shakespeare in L.A., and what was really bad about it was one time I was screwing up a line, and the director told me to leave till I got all the lines right, and my name is perfect for it. He said, "Out, Dan Slott."
That's the best Shakespeare joke all
That's
weekend.
very good.
Yeah.
Now we've got a lot of people up at the microphone. I'm going to be repeating your questions just to make sure the panel hears them. We want to try to get through as many of you guys as we can.
Wait a minute, I'm having a good time talking to Dan. We have to be interrupted by the audience.
Not yet.
Talk to each other.
Not
So,
yet.
Dan,
I'm just letting you know.
Stan, they're the customers. The readers.
Forget what I said.
So, Stan, one of the things that I've wondered since reading this wonderful Superior Spider-Man storyline that Dan has worked on is how do you feel about this? I mean, you're on the stage with him. You didn't say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go on the stage with the guy who put Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man's head.
Are you kidding? Any guy with that great imagination, I am proud to be on the stage with him, and you know it. How many writers, except maybe me, would have been able to think of something that clever?
Well, luckily you did when you did it with Reed Richards and Dr. Doom. I'm just following greatness.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you did that. It was fantastic.
Great to have a memory.
Now, you guys...
This is my memory. This is where my memory will stop and start. Just this, in a bubble. This is all I want.
I love that out, damn slut. I don't know why they didn't laugh at it.
Everybody needs to read more Shakespeare.
It's costume. It's superheroes. It's not Shakespeare.
So let's go ahead and start with the line here, if we're allowed, Stan. All right, let's hear from the first fan.
So this question is for both of you. There was originally a rumor that Mary Jane would be introduced in the Amazing Spider-Man movies as a man, and that Peter would be bisexual. What are your reactions?
You know, it's rare that I claim executive privilege as a moderator. I don't know that there was a question there, because you guys don't do anything with the movies, right? I mean, you're in the movies, but you're not calling the shots. You're not saying, "Oh, this is how this thing happens." I mean, so let's, if I can, as an editor.
What was the question?
The question was something about the way they were going to introduce Mary Jane as a man in the movies, or something like that. I hadn't even heard that rumor.
Mary Jane is a man?
Mary Jane is a man. I guess that's
Have I been away too long?
So, as I guess editor to creator, maybe we could go with how do you guys feel about them introducing Gwen Stacy in the new movies before introducing Mary Jane?
Well, Gwen Stacy came first in the series. But I'll let Dan answer that because he's probably got more to do with how this story structure goes anyway.
My only involvement with the movie was they were very nice, and they had me on the set one day, and I got to watch them film. And Andrew Garfield was so nice. He came up to me and he went, I just want to make sure you killed me. and I told him really quickly what happened in Amazing Spider-Man and how in the beginning of Superior Spider-Man, he was like a ghost stopping Doc Ock from doing things. And Andrew said, so I'm a ghost now? And I said, no, we just killed the ghost last week.
You couldn't say anything right, could you?
No.
Poor Andrew.
But along with Max, your friend Max, and Andrew Garfield, the only two people I revealed the secret that he would come back. Everyone on staff knew. But here was Andrew Garfield in a Spider-Man costume in front of me. I went, Andrew, something tells me around May there'll be a reason for Peter Parker to come back.
You mean to tell me that people were not sure that Peter Parker would come back as Spider-Man?
In fact, Dan Slott lied to so many children at so many conventions about exactly that.
It was terrible. At one signing, a little boy in an honest-to-God Little League uniform came with his stack of comics, and every single comic, my favorite comics to sign, they're all beat up. They've been read 100 times. And then he gets to the bottom one, was the one he just bought at the store that day, and it was pristine and mint and new. And I was talking to him about, what do you like about Spider-Man? His favorite thing about Superior Spider-Man was the ghost of Peter Parker. And he wanted to know how he was going to come back. And then I get to the issue where we killed the ghost, and he hadn't read it. And I just kind of sign it and hand it back. And I'm just like, he leaves, and I'm just telling people, I feel terrible. I feel horrible. He comes back into the line, and his lip is quivering, and his eyes are watering, and in the Little League uniform. And his dad's with him, and he's like, he wanted to ask you a question. And he goes, it's Mysterio, right? It's all an illusion, right? And I'm telling him, no, it's not Mysterio, it's not the Chameleon, it's not a Skrull. That was Peter Parker. And sometimes bad things happen to good people. His dad is saying, it's okay, he'll be fine. And they walked him off. I was talking to him about how I felt when Stan killed Captain Stacy, and how it was the first comic I read that made me cry, and how it's still one of my favorite comics, and that didn't help.
I gotta tell you a great thing about being a comic book writer. You're like God. You can kill people, you can bring them back again. What a power trip this is.
All right, again, this is a very rare opportunity. Best questions in the universe is nothing less. Go for it.
This is for Dan. How did you get the Silver Surfer job?
We have these meetings at Marvel where we all talk about what new comics we should do next. And since we're doing all this stuff in outer space with the Guardians of the Galaxy and Nova, we decided we were going to do a new Silver Surfer book. And I'm busy with Spider-Man, so I wasn't pitching any ideas. I was listening to everyone else's ideas. But none of them sounded very Silver Surfer-y. None of them felt like Norrin Rad. And Norrin Rad was in the first comic I ever read. Not the first one I bought. The first one I read, which were my cousin's Galactus trilogies.
You didn't buy it. What'd you do, steal it?
They were my cousins. I was too young, and he lent me the Galactus trilogy, and those were my first comics.
Your cousin's comics, these are your first comics, your introduction into this amazing medium.
Was the FF and the first ever Silver Surfer story. So I have a deep attachment to Norrin Rad. And Senior Vice President Tom Brevoort, we were talking on the phone after the meeting about, like, we couldn't believe that no one really hit the Silver Surfer right. And he said to me on the phone, what would you do? And I was just talking to him like the way friends talk, because I'm like busy with Spider-Man. And the more I started talking about it, Tom was like, yeah, and then you could do that, and then you could do that. And we just kept talking, and we were supposed to be talking about other things, and we talked about Silver Surfer for like 3 hours on the phone. And then he just stops and he goes, write it up.
What do you mean nobody did the Silver Surfer right?
No, besides you.
I thought I had done it right.
Yes. None of our current guys.
All
None
right.
of our current
Let's
guys.
be careful of how
Yes.
we word these.
Yes.
Next question.
This question is for Stan. What is your best memory working with Jack Kirby?
Best memory working with Jack Kirby.
Oh, working with Jack Kirby was a delight. This guy was so good. I would tell him a few words of what I wanted a story to be. For example, I might say something like, let the Submariner come up to our land and kidnap Sue Storm and bring her to Atlantis, or whatever the name of his kingdom was, I forget. And then the Fantastic Four have to go to rescue her, and this is how it'll end. And I wouldn't say much more than that. And he'd go running home, and in a few days he'd bring me 20 pages all drawn with that story, with a million things I hadn't even thought of. And all I had to do was put in the dialogue and the captions. And it was such fun working with Jack, because he was so imaginative. You know, you talked about the Silver Surfer. Jack is the guy who first did the Silver Surfer. We were doing a Galactus story, and he brought in the artwork. I had given him the plot. He brought in the artwork, and on one of the last pages, he had a picture of the Silver Surfer. And I said, who's this naked nut? I didn't know. And he said, well, I figure anybody as popular as Galactus ought to have a herald who goes ahead of him and finds planets for him to destroy. So I got a guy on a flying surfboard. Well, to Jack, it was just a throwaway idea. But I loved the way he drew the character so much. He looked so noble that I decided I'd call him the Silver Surfer, and I'd actually feature him. But it was Jack who first did it. Anyway, to answer your question, Jack was the greatest guy to work with. He was fast. He always did his absolute best. He made any story he drew look exciting. He was really the best. That's why I gave him the nickname Jack King Kirby.